Alright, time for another draftphysics.com video presentation. I had to pause to check my hard drive space. Anyway, so the Iron Gosling has made another video justifying his terrible procedures in doing experiments and defending mathematics that's just absolute crapomatics. I mean, it's just nonsense. And so I will try to quickly explain the ludicrous nature of his claims. All right. So basically, he's saying that a spring, which we know measures a thing called weight, okay, in gravity, basically, okay, that the idea would be is that it's kind of irrefutable that if I had two objects that weigh the same, and I put one on the scale, I do a certain amount of work. It's work to put them on the scale. I have to apply a force, okay, and I have to do work to put them on the scale. And the fact is that it doesn't require extra work beyond just 1 unit of work. So it's 1 unit of work to put one on the scale. It's 2 units of work to put 2 on the scale. Actually, because the scale drops a little, it's less work. So it's only 2 units of work, 2 units of force that you put on the scale. And the scale will read twice the distance on the scale. So there's no doubt about Hooke's law and these facts. And yet he's claiming this gave me 1 unit of force. This gave me 3 units of force. So just lifting the second object on gave me 4 units of 3 extra units of force to give me a total of 4. So I got 4x. So I did 2 units of work. I get 4x, okay, the energy. All right, and he doesn't think that's free energy. You do 2 units of work and you get 4 units of energy. That's not a free energy formula in his opinion. All right, so on its face, that's silly. All right, so they're trying to play this both ways, this 1.4 gibberish. So their argument is is that if I try to launch something with a spring, okay, if I compress it twice as much, I won't get twice the energy. So say if I launch this at 10, okay, and I take the same mass and I twice as compress the spring, I'm only going to get 1.5, 1.4. That's all I get out of it. I can't shoot it twice as fast with twice the compression of the spring. So I compress the spring twice as much. So this is the full length of the spring. I compress it twice as much. Okay, so I get a V1 here, okay, and I only get V1.4 here, 1.4. That's all I get out. So I've twice as compressed the spring, and I only got 1.4 coming out. And now they're arguing, okay, that it works exactly the opposite, that I put something with 1 velocity in, and the spring compresses, and then instead of, I put something in with the 2 velocity, which is more velocity than this, right? So I now have doubled the velocity, and I'm only going to get 1.4 the compression. I'm only going to get 0.4 extra. That's it. So it's not going to, so twice the compression only produces 1.4, and twice the velocity only produces 1.4. So the two are in direct contradiction. These two things can't be equal. This is impossible. You can't say that I compress the spring twice as much and I get less velocity, velocity minus, I didn't double my velocity, and then say when I put double velocity in, I get less compression than the 2. Twice the velocity doesn't compress the spring even to the 2. I mean, it makes no sense. 1.4 can't make twice the velocity. It can't do it by this definition here. It's impossible for 1.4 to make twice the velocity because twice the compression can't make twice the velocity. If twice the compression can't make twice the velocity, how can 1.4, how can I add this 0.4, in terms of the spring being more relaxed and get twice the velocity when they're saying you can't? It's too short. So they're saying, it's just impossible. You can't sit there and have both of these facts to be true. Now I would argue neither one of them is true. This whole 1.4 thing is absolute nonsense. And yes, the scale is just measuring weights. Okay, and when you drop something in gravity 4 times the distance, it only weighs twice as much. It doesn't weigh 4 times as much. All right, so it's just nonsense. And when it's half the mass, obviously, it's going to be just twice the energy, not 4 times the energy. So all of this is just lying. They're just forcing an experiment to match. Let's understand this is now the 4th video in the series. You know, if you want to watch the rest of the video. So he did an experiment, okay, completely wrong. He dropped it from 5 times the height instead of 4 times the height. Claimed it was proof, when obviously it wasn't. Then he redid the experiment the right way and got results that were perfectly consistent with momentum being in control. That is, the half mass dropped from 4 times the height is the same weight as the full mass dropped 1 unit of distance, because it's about time. The 1 mass is in gravity for 1 unit of time. The half mass is in gravity for 2 units of time. They will weigh the same. That's what he got as a result, and he wouldn't show the experiment. Right? So then the third version was another, barely got the number to be a little bit off of that right answer. So he broke it a little tiny bit. And now in this 4th video, he's broken it a lot more. But it's still way short of being twice the compression that he really has to show for him to make any sense at all. Or else he has to dispose of his 1.4 launching theory. Again, you can't compress a spring 1.4 and then claim that in that 1.4 is stored the velocity that will make it go twice as fast, when compression even deeper than that can't make it go twice as fast. If a further compression of the spring can't achieve twice the speed, how is it possible that 1.4 the compression can produce twice the speed? I mean, it's just, this is such a lie. It's such canardery. And the fact that physicist Michael, the teacher, is falling for it. And, it's really just quite disgusting that physics is this ill-informed, irrational. It doesn't really pay any attention is the key. And that's what they're proving. They don't care about these details. So anyway, this is the side issue. Now the real issue is this silly way he's measuring velocities. And the simple argument is it's obviously not a proven method. Okay, so he's basically created a system where he's going to be measuring something's speed, okay, its velocity, by essentially banging into some other little object, okay, that has more friction. So this won't be affected by friction, but the little object will. So he's going to hit the little object, give it velocity and momentum, and then the expectation is that it's going to stop immediately because the friction is so high. So it won't get pushed very far. So he's basically going to do the same experiment. He's going to just change the velocity. One's going to be going twice as fast. So in both cases, he can't help but push this thing a little bit further. The friction can't be high enough that it doesn't move at all. It's an unreasonable expectation. And so in this case, he got 3.6 as a number when he did this experiment, and then instead of getting 3.6, because this one's twice the velocity, the simple argument would be is that your little pusher kept going a little further, and he got 4.7 instead. So that's the simple argument. He's not going to refute that in this video, so he's just wasting everybody's time with a lame effort to reclamate a theory that can't possibly be correct. He has no theoretical ground. Again, he's saying lifting something onto a scale. When you lift this, you want to put 2 pounds on the scale. You're going to lift 1 pound at a time. He's saying when you lift that second time, you did 3 times the work. You put 3 times the energy in. It's on its face nonsense. All right, so to the video. Get this over with, hopefully. I guess I'll definitely speed it up. This is just crap. He will not demonstrate that this thing works. He's just going to tell us it does. And he doesn't have any reason to believe it does because he didn't test it. I mean, it's just such bullshit.
Hello guys, I thought we'd have a closer look at what's been described as my little fake reader. I was very proud of this little addition because it would enable me to
Yeah, you're
measure the...
proud of a lot of bad ideas you have, and that's the whole problem. You really aren't very good at this engineering thing or being a scientist thing and really understanding how any of these mechanisms work, but you don't understand any physics. You're really dumb.
maximum
You're really ignorant.
flexion of the scale without the need of a very expensive slow-mo camera or even editing facilities.
You don't need any of that stuff. Again, Brozo proved you can just do it with a little wad of clay. You put a little wad of clay there, you let the thing tear through the clay, it gives you the answer. Not all that complicated. Obviously, you could make some other kind of pointer where you could have the thing, you put a little carbon on it, have it rub against a piece of paper. There's all kinds of different ways it could be done. And yes, it would be nice if everybody had 3 or 4 days to think about it, but yeah, we really don't.
It's simply a slice of a plastic pipe, the grey.
So you'll see how it's not even. So it's one side of the scale is reading a different number than the other side. The screw is what's being pushed, I believe. Well, I'm not quite sure. I guess the plunger's hitting the arrow. Okay. But obviously it's not very straight. So there's all kinds of room for it to wiggle and for it to be easier or harder for it to move.
It's been cut off the end, opened out, cut through the diameter, opened out around the body of the scale, with a little red bit of card as a pointer. And the screw...
So it looks like both sides of the scale are the same. So that's interesting. And the screw, I don't know what it's connected to. Is it just rubbing against the stuff here? I don't see any marks indicating it's doing much. So I don't know what it's rubbing against.
Through the back, that goes into the slot.
So this slot doesn't move? No, this is the slot that's being hit. So he's hitting the screw side. And the two sides aren't exactly reading the same numbers. Obviously this line here is a better number. This is what he should be reading here. This line here. That would be more sensible.
Where the piece of the scale moves up and down, you can see it on the front side, at the top. That piece that's moving up and down is the same on the back. What's at the top, isn't it? Up there.
Right. So this is the side that's getting a more accurate reading. The other side the whole thing tilts. I mean, to see he's got flaws all over the place. He didn't think through this.
Screw head, or the tip of the screw, and pushes the pointer down.
Yeah, there you can see it. Jitter, jitter, jitter as he pushed it down. Some places it's really light friction, some places really hard. So when it goes a little sideways, it's tougher friction. So this is hardly any kind of linear device. And clearly there's no evidence that this can't just keep going. I mean, this is a very fast movement. You're dropping essentially, when he drops the half-pound weight from 40 centimeters, you're really talking about it landing as if it was 7 pounds. It's a pretty good hunk of weight, 7 pounds. 7 pounds is going to move the scale rather quickly.
Very little inertia, very little weight.
So again, it doesn't matter about inertia. It matters about velocity. Velocity is what's going to give that thing momentum. The higher the speed, the more momentum it's going to get. And so obviously when you're doubling the speed, obviously you're doubling its momentum.
Gary was suggesting that the half mass, twice velocity was reading more than it should, according to his theory.
Yes, faster things slow down harder. It's hard to slow down something moving faster. That's just a simple, that's one of the ABCs of physics. There's just no doubt about it. It's harder to slow down something going faster. So your counter argument is what?
Because as the spring had stopped expanding, the momentum of my little fake reader was carrying on, giving a fake reading.
Yeah, just like your magnet did the same thing. So why doesn't... This has mass. It's got a screw in it. It's plastic. It's got some mass to it. It's not some kind of trivial thing that can't move. Once it has a velocity, it certainly is something that can maintain its motion.
With the friction of the screw in the back, there's significant enough
So he's pushing it down. Let's just wait and we'll see if we can see all this jitter, where it moves really easy, then it moves hard, then it moves easy.
For it not to have...
Look how easy. See, look how easy it's jittering there.
I thought I would just explain that in case anybody was interested.
So you didn't need to explain it. We already assumed it was something like that, and you haven't countered the argument at all. So he's not going to show us anything here to counter the argument.
There real problem with all this, of course, is that...
So he's going to do some more slow motion experiments. I mean, again, that when the weight hits the end of the string, there is a real, very fast transfer of the energy from the weight to the spring. It happens really fast. So it's a lot of velocity being thrown into this spring.
Gary, you're refusing to understand how a spring works.
I'm sorry, I already do understand.
Now you say if there is twice the energy, for instance in a dropped mass.
Yeah, that's exactly what weight is. Weight is a form of energy, so you just really can't get away from that idea. Weight is energy. That's what weight is showing you. It's showing you how much gravitational force you collected. It's showing you how much energy you collected from gravity. That's what your weight on a scale represents. It is the 9.8 meters per 1 second, pushing on you. And that's what it's representing. It's a certain velocity. Now, I argue the velocity is actually 1 mile an hour. So if I move you 1 mile an hour horizontally into a scale, you're going to weigh your mass.
At one velocity, it would weigh 2, or show 2, and at double velocity, 4 times the height, it'll show 4.
It really has to, because your own theory says if I double it, I only get 1.4 out. So I would get much less than twice the velocity. So you're saying I could make a spring where I go in with 2 velocity and I come out with 1.4. That's your theory. Yeah, obviously I argue that's complete garbage. Nobody believes that happens, that the spring is that non-conservative. People believe springs are conservative, that they conserve the energy. You can't conserve the energy if you're going to say it, when it lands, it only goes 1.4, and at even twice the compression, it can't produce twice the velocity. That means your spring isn't conservative. It doesn't work at all. It's almost insane, and obviously it's free energy, frankly.
It wouldn't.
So, just says you.
The spring does not store energy in a linear
Says you.
fashion. It cannot do.
So, if it's not linear, then you can't use the 1.4 argument. So, when Brozo tells you that twice the compression only produces 1.4 the velocity and that you need to add more energy to get twice the velocity, both theories can't be right. So, you're going to have to abandon one and accept the other because they're in direct contradiction. The spring won't bounce by your theory. It's impossible because the 1.4 the compression can't create twice the velocity up.
If you think about it for a little while, you can understand why.
No, there's nothing to understand. Right? I've already made the argument over 2 months ago or whatever that lifting 1 pound and then lifting a second pound is not 4 units of energy. It's only 2 units of energy.
Now, let's pretend that the spring, as we extend it, isn't increasing in its resistance.
It's not increasing its resistance. It's just saying you have to add more for there to be more. Now, if you're pulling on a spring, what are you doing? You're fighting gravity. So this is like him saying, I'm lifting a weight, and I add weight as you're lifting. I start adding more and more weight to the weight. Obviously, it feels like, oh man, that extra weight is so much more. And there's a point where it might break your arms. I could put on a piece of glass and the glass takes it and all of a sudden it just collapses and breaks. It's not because the added weight was more weight. It's because you're fighting the collective weight, the weight of gravity pushing on the mass. So, it's just that stupid of him to think that 2 pounds weighs more than just 2 1 pounds. 2 1 pounds weighs the same as a 2 pound weight. They're not any different. So more nonsense.
Let's say it's not.
So Physics Michael has endorsed this shit video. Does he endorse this stupid, idiotic interpretation where this moron is basically saying scales don't measure linearly? That there isn't a proportional reaction from the scale proportional to the energy you're imposing on it. All right, let's redo this, see if there's any comments. Let's see. Now we have some. Oh, good. That ought to be fun to watch. Yeah, it's all right.
Hello, guys. I
Get
thought we'd have
back
a
to here
closer look.
again.
If you think about it for a little while, you can understand why. Now, let's pretend that the spring, as we extend it, isn't increasing in its resistance. Let's say it's not recording weight.
Yes, 1 pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 4 pounds. I use the same energy to add a pound, add a pound, add a pound. Same energy. I'm not adding more. There's no moreness. 2 is exactly twice as much as 2 ones, and 4 is 2 twos, and that's the way it works.
In a linear fashion, meaning that there's more and more force, more and more weight required to extend it. Let's say that these markings are not weight or force. Let's say they're just distance. Let's pretend they're just a measure of distance.
Yeah, who cares? It's not going to work as an explanation. Again, you're saying that if I pull the spring back 1.4, okay, that means I'm going to get twice the velocity. Obviously, I'm not. That's not going to happen. So why are you saying it? Because it's not going to happen. Because we know if I pull it all the way down to 2, all of Brozo's experiments say I can't get twice the velocity even if I pull it all the way down to 4, all the way down to 2. I can't get twice the velocity at 2. How can I get twice the velocity at 1.4? See, it doesn't make any sense. How can I get... It's just... You're talking absolute shit. And this isn't what science is... talking absolute shit isn't what science is supposed to be. This kind of stupid argument shouldn't have to be countered by anybody. Because it's really stupid. It's flat earth stupid. It's UFO nut stupid. It's really, really stupid. Bucky Rogers stupid.
And the spring inside is completely linear in the force required. Meaning that the force required to move it here is the same force required to move it here.
How can he say that? That doesn't even make any sense. The force to move it here is the same as the force to move it there. What is that? What did he just say? That can't make any sense to anybody on Earth. I shouldn't have to replay that, right? I mean, that was just... What the fuck was that crap?
Move it here is the same force required to move it here. Let's pretend.
No, it's not.
So I'm expending energy.
It's like pretending you're not ugly and fat and stupid. Why would I do that?
In moving the spring along the scale, by distance or displacement. And when I get to 3, I've done 1, 2, 3 units of work, say, or I've expended that much energy in moving it that distance.
Right, so that's linear, retard.
So it twice that distance, or down to 6, would indicate twice the energy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We do the same. We expend the same energy as moving it from 1 to 3.
I don't know why you would say that. From moving 1 to 3 is 2 units. I don't know what you're talking about now. You can't move it 1 to 3 without doing the work of holding it against the 1 pressure. You can't just pretend the 1 pressure isn't there. You have to pull at the 1 pressure. Well, now you have to do the 1 pressure for when you're holding the 2 pressure. The 1 pressure is still there. And when you're holding the 3 pressure, the 1 pressure and the 2 pressure are still there. I mean, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as pulling the spring to 3 and then say, let's not count the first pound. You can't uncount it. You can't uncompress that part of the spring and pretend it didn't compress. You're still compressing it. You're still holding it against gravity. Well, you're holding it against the force of the spring. I mean, too silly.
As we would expend from moving it from 3 to 6.
One of the assholes with no mufflers. I mean, these are so... I mean, why the fuck? In any civilization, you have to tolerate that kind of horse shit. You're just saying, why don't the cops take those people down? Just amazing.
Anybody can agree with that, can't they? Okay, but that's not how a spring works, is it? The increments are not for distance, they are for weight. So the
and exactly. And weight is made out of adding pounds. And you add pounds as increments or units of energy, essentially. And you don't put 1 pound on and then say, I'm going to do 3 times the work and add another pound. It's not going to be 3 pounds, 3 times the work. It's only going to be 1 unit of work. Absolutely ludicrous for you to defend this nonsense. I mean, this is just such fucking crap. So why don't you just test your stupid little reader? You have to just put the camera on the frickin' scale when you drop the weight, and we'll see if it's actually measuring the weight.
Force required is continually increasing as I'm pulling on the spring. I can feel it. It's like a chest expander. The further I open the spring, the more force it's requiring.
Duh, because you still have to hold against the previous force. If I'm holding 50 pounds and then you add 25 pounds, I'm holding the 50 still. I have to do all the work of doing the 50. It's still only 25 pounds. If I took away the 50, you would feel, oh, it's only 25 pounds now. No, you're collecting the weight. It's more weight. Okay, it's not progressively increasing the weight. The extra 5 pounds I put on isn't more than 5 pounds. It's just 5 pounds. All right, the fact that you're already holding 50 pounds means, well, 5 more pounds is going to feel like maybe it's too much. Maybe that's my limit. I can only lift so much. So what is this? I mean, this is so stupid.
So when you think about it, the force or the energy expired in moving from 1 to 3, if we stopped.
Okay, there's no such thing as 1 to 3. There's no way to move from 1 to 3 without including 1. There's no such thing. Okay, those 2 pounds you add are the same as the 3 pounds, because you can't pretend the 1 isn't still there. It's still there, retard. It's compression of the spring. You can't just pretend it away. Let's pretend I'm not still pushing against that 1 pound. We'll just pretend, right? Pretending works.
We measured that. And then say, well, carry on from 3 to 6. You're saying it's the same energy to carry on from 3 to 6. Well, of course it's not. The distance is doubled, but the force is increasing all the time as well.
So again, this theory doesn't work because compressing the spring twice as much by their own statements can't produce twice the velocity. You can't have it both ways. Shit-talking, two-faced, duplicitous, lying sack of shit.
That's how a spring is a measure of energy. It's not linear. And the energy stored in a spring is not linear.
So none of these arguments are conventional physics. So just understand. And again, Physics Michael endorsed this shit. So we'll see if he has a comment on this piece of steaming shit video with his irrational nonsense in it.
Until you can understand that, or accept that, we're never going to be able to solve your problem.
Okay, well, whatever. The only problem I have is that you're lying cheaters. All right, you did the experiment and you perfectly achieved my results without any of your finagling and cheating. All right, and you wouldn't even show that experiment, you coward. Okay, and if you just redo the experiment correctly, there won't be a problem. So fix your fucking scale. Use some other method that doesn't require this thing to be pushed, okay, and gain momentum, and then prove your case. But yes, this experiment has an obvious suspect element. You're not taking any responsibility for that suspect element and just claiming, I know it didn't have an effect. You don't know any such thing, you liar.
Bye for now.
So, it wasn't too bad. So let's get through this. Great reader gadget. So they just keep applauding something that pretty much can't, in theory, work. It can't be very reliable in theory. There's nothing to stop it but friction. And if you apply enough friction to stop it, well, then you're interfering with the experiment. Besides the fact that it's reading 2 different numbers on the 2 different sides, which also isn't too fucking good. Anyway, how many times have we over the same thing with him about how springs store energy? What an embarrassment. No, the embarrassment is yours. Clearly, any idiot who thinks it's 4 times the energy to put a 1 weight on and then put the second weight on, I did 4 times the work, 3 times the work, is an idiot. I mean, they should be in an idiot farm. Okay, nice experiment. Possible to replace the metal screw with a nylon one for less friction. So again, more talk about the friction. What's the purpose of the friction? To stop it from sliding anywhere. How do you know you have the right friction when you're doubling the speed? Oh, that's right, you don't. It seems to me to be stuttering a bit as it moves down. Well, let's see if he takes any account for that. Is it necessary? It was really just to show Gary MV is wrong. So again, that's the statement, physicist Michael. Is there anything else you need to hear from somebody doing experiments? You're going to say this is a credible experimentalist when this is his fucking philosophy. I mean, fuck you. Fuck you and this bullshit. You fucking people are just so disgraceful. Alright, Falwell always says something completely irrelevant, but let's see. I think in all honesty, he does in fact understand how springs work. Yeah, I understand that they weigh things, okay, and weight is momentum. It's not exactly rocket science to test one out by simply compressing one between your fingers and feeling the increase in force. Of course it's an increase in force. The previous compression is still pushing against you. You've now added more compression. Again, the 25 pounds just weighs 25 pounds. If I add it to 50 already in your hands, it's going to feel like it's a whole bunch more. But that doesn't mean anything because it's still just 25 pounds of weight. Oh, fuck you people are too stupid. We try to press it further and further. No sensitive or precise measuring equipment required. So just more lying bullshit. So I'm not even going to bother reading that nonsense. His brain can only think in linear terms. So more bullshit. Okay? I know that energy in the universe is, in linear terms. It's not doing all this little fairy bullshit. It's not little maggot snakes. Jellyfish. The problem for Gary now is he is hanging his whole model on KE being a lie. It's obviously wrong. Yes, I've made 3 videos in a series now where you can just point out how one of those is wrong, how somehow gravity is a per foot force. Will you please make the counter argument explaining how it's a per foot force? Go ahead and show me that. Show me that drawing. Again, I've asked for 2 years for one of you fucking lunatics to draw a lever and explain how it doesn't conserve momentum. And you won't do it. It's just amazing. He cannot afford now to concede how springs work. It's just more bullshit. Concede what? So let's understand his results are completely inconsistent with his own theory. The spring did not show twice as much energy. How many grams kilo is that spring weighted for? It says it right on the fucking surface, you retard. It's in kilograms, dumbass. I assume it's just a little over 6 kilograms. Yay, bravo! It says 6 right on it. Might need a heavier spring. No, you had lighter weights would work. Oh, it's just so funny. 6 kilograms, well in excess of the limits. So, I mean, these people are really stupid. So just as Brozo pointed out in the other, you don't have enough spring. You don't have enough scale. So, I mean, he didn't even have enough to get twice the compression. But again, understand, twice the compression, that is if I pulled it all the way down to 6, 3.7, I pulled it to 7.2, even though there's no 7.2 on there. Their argument would be, is I couldn't get twice the velocity from the one mass. It's impossible. I can't get twice the velocity. So if I pulled it all the way down to 7, his own experiment, he did this experiment where he had a weight on a spring. Okay, and so he was having the weight rather than pushing it down twice as far. But Brozo again argues that twice compressed spring does not produce twice the velocity. So even if I pulled it all the way to 7, they're saying it won't leave with twice the velocity. So it comes in with twice the velocity, but it can't leave with twice the velocity. And it's not going to read the number, so it goes in and only compresses a little tiny bit, 0.4. So it only goes to 5 instead of 7. So it only goes to 5 instead of 7, and then when the 5 shoots up, it goes twice the velocity. Even though when I put it at 7, I can't get twice the velocity. I mean, you can't get dumber, more duplicitous, more dishonest, more convoluted, more nonsensical than this horse shit of an argument. The contradiction is obvious. These two wacky theories of theirs are in complete diametric opposition. Damn it. Damn it. All right. So let's see if physicist Michael has any hope of reclamating himself as having any integrity at all. You know, and I'll just haunt him, because this is really bullshit. This is the crime. This is a crime against science, to endorse this kind of fucking shenanigans and horse shit. It's a sin. You should be, what does Scrooge say? You should be boiled in your own bullshit. With a piece of, with a fucking scale, jammed through your ear. Alright, anyway. So, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. I mean, it's just too ridiculous. They can't do anything honest. They're just incapable, because they're so obsessed with breaking reason and logic and facts to in some way prove me wrong. And they can't do it theoretically. They can't draw it. They can't draw me wrong. And clearly they can finagle experiments to make me look wrong. But that's all it is gross cheating. Alright. Fuckers. Damn, this planet sucks.